Hey everybody, welcome back. We're talking about La Luna, and now we're going to talk a bit about how the little boy gets to the moon. Yay! Which seems like a very small thing, but takes a little bit to get there. So let's sit back and do that. So we talked a lot about the visual wonder established in the opening of the film in the last video, which if you didn't watch, go back and watch it, or figure it out as you go. I'm not responsible, though, if you are confused. Telling you now. Anyways, so with the wonder in place, the story becomes about the little boy's initiation. This is a coming-of-age story. That thing you talked about a lot in high school English. So as the story begins, the audience learns that while this is not a film with dialogue like Bound In, these characters do have access to gibberish to communicate. Casarova attributes this style to Osvaldo Cavandoli, who is an Italian cartoonist. He's fabulous. Look him up on YouTube. Watch it before you show your kids. Some of his stuff is a little more risque, but it's really funny, and he's underappreciated, so you should all go watch it now. So, Osvaldo Cavandoli, and Casarova claims that he, quote, wanted the father and grandfather to speak this incomprehensible language, meaningless but very emotional, with flavors a little Italian. So, Casarova is taking the same approach to language, but not quite the same approach to cartooning. Cavandoli's cartoons are simple line cartoons involved in comedic slight gags. The gibberish makes sense in Cavandoli's absurdist world, so even with this justification for Casarova's choice, it is a bit more of a communication cop-out than in Cavandoli's cartoon. And so the world is not absurdist, and these are people, not storks and clouds. So lack of speech or nonsense speech stands out more. You kind of notice more that they aren't speaking in a language that we understand. And with Partly Cloudy, you don't necessarily notice that because you're so into the story. So, that being said, Partly Cloudy's communication through physical action and grand gesture would not work as well when the older generation begins fighting. So the filmmakers fall back on the simulated conversation instead. It is a difficult balance because the film needs to avoid the pitfalls of Bound In, where we get lectured to, but it must also honor how these characters would actually interact in this situation. Because they are human, they would be using language to communicate. So this Cavandoli-esque gibberish is the compromise. So Partly Cloudy got out of it because it was not dealing with human characters, so there is no expectation that the cloud and stork even know how to speak. So I'm being a little hard on La Luna here, but I'm trying to show you the various things that I think make good storytelling and what I think can be shortcuts and how you best avoid them and make compromises and just figure it out. Because guess what, guys? Filmmaking and storytelling are really, really hard, and sometimes we do not give these artists enough credit. So, both films do strive for a more universal language, and they just ended up going at it from different directions. So what also sets this apart from Bound In is that even if the gibberish gets closer to dialogue than Partly Cloudy ever did, the bigger messages are not dealt with linguistically, as opposed to the major moral of the film, like Bound In. They are instead dealt with using physical motifs and sight gags. The first action of the film is that the little boy is presented with a new hat in honor of his new job. It's a great hat. I approve vastly of the hat. I probably should have found a similar hat and worn it during this blog, but I digress. Anyways, the grandfather immediately corrects the boy after he puts the hat on, adjusting it to match the grandfather's personal style, which is out of the eyes. The father is not happy with the adjustment and immediately reaches over to pull the hat down, just like his. This leads to the first argument the boy is stuck in the middle of. It is a short one, though, and it is interrupted by the waiting for the moon. The same argument again appears, however, a few minutes later. Remember, it's a short film, so a few minutes is a large amount of time. But for us, it's a few minutes. So, the second argument takes place when we actually get to the moon, Don't worry, we're going to talk about that. I'm not just skipping that, but just jumping ahead really quickly. Takes place on the moon and handled almost identically. A physical object is used to represent each party. This time, the father and grandfather are arguing over sweeping methods to teach the boy. And as they shout gibberish at each other, the boy holds up a broom to each of their faces. The grandfather's broom matches his beard, and the father's broom matches his mustache. It's really funny, actually. It's ridiculously funny. The boy is once again caught between the two men, stuck in their own ways, but as he gets more confident, the sillier the bickering seems. If the first time they argued he just looked warily at the moon, confused, this time he gets to laugh, and we laugh too. So, these rituals are all tied to the boy's rite of passage. He must strike a balance between learning from his father and grandfather and asserting his own identity. The first argument about the hat is more confusing for the boy because he is still in the learning phase of the film, as are we. This phase is physicalized in the scene immediately following the fight. The scene is the waiting period for the moon, where everything stops, including the music. It is in the quiet of the moment, the boy imitates his father and grandfather. First, the father rubs his nose, and the boy does the same. Then the grandfather cleans his ears, and so does the boy. And so the boy has yet to find his own actions. He is literally copying and not sure who he wants to emulate. And of course, the father and grandfather both want him to emulate. And you get it. The boy breaks out of this mode of thinking, though, through action. Yay, action! So after the moon arrives, the father and the grandfather make the boy ascend the ladder first. While the boy has an initially surprised reaction at being chosen to go first, he determinedly does as he is told. After this, the film takes its time with his climb. The rhymes. Allowing small moments of hesitation and fear to creep in. The boy continues to pause and look down as he climbs, even prompting the grandfather to urge him upwards. By physicalizing the boy's fears, the film raises the stakes for the boy. Since this was released in 3D, the height would feel even more exaggerated in the theater and elicit a fraction of the fear in the audience. The important thing about this shot is that it proves that the little boy is not fearless. He is afraid, but he is willing to conquer his fears, which is huge. Anyways, this is his first challenge, and the effort he puts into it provides enough tension that the moment he reaches the top of the ladder is a triumph for the boy, and he has achieved something just by reaching the top. Now, I'm actually going to stop here because next we get to the moon, which takes a whole nother conversation. But in these small chunk of film, we learn a lot. We learn a lot about the storytelling. We learn a lot about the characters, and it's really cool. But now we get to go to the moon, which is really sad if you've seen Inside Out. You know, I'm gonna plug that all summer. I'm sorry. It's a great movie. Anyways, I'm gonna sign off now and give you a break from me. And then come back and we'll talk about the moon. Woo!